Check it out. It's a 2GR in an MR2 Spyder. And right now it's being held by this, but if I did my math properly, I should be able to let it go, and it'll be hanging on 3 motor mounts. There it is. And it looks like it's only down on that side by 0.6 degrees, so I'll have to do the math, shim it up, and we're there. You guys want to see how we got here? All right, check it out. And we're back to where today started. So the plan today was to go through this transmission and show you guys how to install the reverse detent as well as the end of the input shaft bearing. But Toyota had other plans and did not get me the parts in time that I need. So instead, we're going to do what you saw a minute ago, and we're going to get the thing in the car. I think more of you care about that anyways. But first things first, this transmission is nasty, plus it has a bunch of extra stuff on there that we don't need. So let me clean that up. And while he's doing that, I'm just going to cut in with a couple things I wanted to say. I'm amazed at the response I got from the last video. You guys absolutely destroyed my previous view count records. Over 150 of you guys decided to click the subscribe button, and I didn't even ask. And honestly, better yet, 10 of you guys even signed up for the mailing list to get notified when parts for this swap become available. That really means a lot to me, and hopefully those signups for that list were sincere. But enough with the sentimental stuff. He's done with the scrubbing, so let's get back. Hey, go away. All right, now we've got this thing a lot cleaner. Obviously, it's not as clean as it's going to get. We'll pressure wash it when we get it apart. But next thing we're going to do, we got to make this thing fit the 2GR. These 2 little ears here end up hitting the rear head, and we just need to clearance them a little bit. And these don't get used, so you can't really screw it up. Just going to use a sanding flap wheel. And there it is. That's all the clearancing you need to fit it on 2GR. There's nothing super precise here because these don't get used. Just make sure that you're leaving some flat surface there and cut it back. I cut them back about 1/4 inch or so, which I think is way more than I need. So let me get the engine in here, and then we're going to bolt the 2 together, and we'll be ready to put it in the car. And here's the engine we're going to use. This is the engine that I used for bench firing a Sienna ECU. You can see it right here. And because we're going to have some clearance issues up here, what we're going to do is we're just going to remove everything that we can and make this as small as possible. Because what we want to do is cut a hole in the car that's as small as we can to get it in there, and then we can enlarge it to whatever size it needs to be. But it's difficult to see what size the hole needs to be until this is in there. And there it is. And by the way, this is the FM1 connector that we talked about how to put this onto a Sienna harness. That is what we will be using in this car. And now everything that's protruding is going to be this valve, this sensor, this line, and this. And for the uneven sized holes, we're just going to stuff some rags in them. All right, so there it is. And you'll notice we didn't install an alternator. What that means is we won't have to cut the front access hole at all until it's all in place, and then we'll come back and we'll put the alternator in. So let's get the transmission bolted to it. And now we've got the engine at a comfortable angle. Just make sure you've only got the 2 dowel pins. On the transmission you should have none, or sometimes they're on the transmission, but make sure you only have 2 so they're not interfering with the other ones. And with this at this angle, it should be pretty easy to rest it on there. I've just got a dowel so I can kind of hold everything in place until I grab some bolts and then put it in. Looks like this oil cooler line might be in the way. It might just be the hose, so let me take the hose off. And by the way, we don't have the clutch on here. This is going to have to come back out because we need to put some parts inside the transmission. I am leaving the flex plate in here just in case we end up stuffing a starter and testing the electrical before this all comes back apart. Okay, so what we're learning here, I had never done this with an oil cooler engine before, but looks like with this oil cooler line, these ears are going to have to come off. They're just in the way. There's no bolt locations behind those anyways, so there's no reason not to take them off. Plus, you know, remember, the car is so heavy, we've barely got enough power here to move the thing, so any weight reduction we can get is, you know, better. Let's put it on there. All right, and as you can see now, these clear, no problem. So it looks like really if you've got an oil cooler, which adds this pipe, you're just going to have to cut those off. And frankly, there's no reason to use those, so you can cut them off even if you don't have the oil cooler. All right, we've got our motor almost ready to go in. The only thing we need to do now is have a mount here on the left side and a mount on the front. And that'll allow us to kind of locate it in the car to be able to make the right side mount. And these mounts are the mounts that I already have available on the website. And the hardware is all JIS, so you don't need to use different sizes. You know, like this will have a 14 millimeter head, which is what's supposed to have when it's in a Japanese car. And now that we're on the other side, you can see we had to do a bit of grinding on the transmission. Now we got to do a bit of grinding on the motor. There's just a little thing that sticks out here, and this tab here needs to be cut off. All right, and let's put this bracket here. And the kit comes with 2 different length bolts. The longer ones are the ones that you use for this side. The shorter ones we'll use in a minute when we're on the car. All right, and now this thing's ready to drop into the car. Now, if you're doing it once the production mount is available, of course you're going to put the mount on the other side, and you won't have to do any of this finagling here, but we don't have that luxury, so let's go pay attention to the car. We need to get some stuff off of the car so that we can get this thing in there. And now we've got the car, so let's get this stuff out of the way so we can work. And the previous owner looks like saved me a little bit of time, because the only thing holding this bumper on is these 2 clips, I think. Yep. All right, step 1. Ha! The bumper bar's upside down. Seriously? You put a toe bolt in there? What the hell? All right, I'm really going to have to go over this thing, every nut and bolt in this thing, because who knows what shape it's in. Now that is confidence inspiring. Oh man, that's fantastic. What the hell, people? Everything that can be unbolted has been unbolted. We haven't cut anything on the chassis yet, but we are ready pretty much to start putting it in. The only thing I want to do, I want to take a stab at cutting a hole up here, kind of to get a size established. It's definitely going to be too small, but until I get the engine in there, it's hard to tell exactly what size it needs to be. So we're just going to make something small and enlarge it where we need to enlarge it. So let's get up there. All right, So what I want to see if I can get away with is leaving this bracket here. I'm not too worried about it if I have to lose the tray or if I have to rebuild this to keep the tray, but I think that's going to be where we're going to call our first line. It's going to be to here. And then we're going to go kind of along here. And I know we're going to need to go at least up to here. I don't know how high we're going to have to go because this actually goes up. So we're going to go actually right to the top of this pad. We're going to call that good. Again, I repeat, I know this is too small. This is just step one. So before cutting, make sure you cover the interior of your car. So this is when we're really committed at this point. Let's go. Yep, looks like we're committed now, eh? So I think that the only thing I'm going to do for the front is just cut this little nub off right here. Since we don't have the alternator and everything, I don't think we're going to have any issues. Only one way to find out, though. We almost forgot, we got to get the frame side anchor for the front. All right, now we've got 2 points to anchor to. There we go. Bolt number 1. And I can see we're not too far on number 2. Alright, so at this point we're 0.7 degrees. I can see we're definitely contacting here. I think we're going to have to either get rid of the parcel tray or some other way to hold it up, because this bracket is going to have to go. But let's start with here. That's relatively easy. So it looks like we just need to cut to this rib right here. Okay, so what's the number we're shooting for? Oh, okay, 0. Okay, well that's the oil cap. I'll just take that off for now. All right, so there it is. All right, so we can see here we've got contact here. We don't have contact here, but we will by the time we put the VVTI line in. But that's actually, yeah. Let's worry about that right now. So make the panel come out a little bit, and then we've got contact here, but that's just an ear on the motor. That doesn't really matter. But I do want a little bit of clearance because obviously this thing wiggles around a little bit. So we go up, over, and then just a little bit further. We're definitely going to have to do some more clearancing here. I think the hole's probably not quite as big as it's going to be when this is all done, but I think it's rather close. All right, so check this out. We just got to connect a couple of these bolt holes to here. And keep in mind, I'm going to make a production version of this mount, so right now we're just worried about getting the spatial relationship. I'm not trying to make a final mount or anything. I just need something quick and dirty that connects all those dots together. And something that I found that fits that bill is I got a stock mount. I just cut a little bit off of it so that the strap doesn't get caught up in it. And we're going to put it there. And then that's easier. We just take right from the top here and we just weld a couple things together to make it fill the gap in between. All right, so to fill the gap, I made a couple pieces. Keep in mind, this wasn't designed to look pretty. This is just to be able to get the dimensions off of it. All right, and before we put the other two pieces in, we're actually going to bring the motor up just a little bit to make up for how much the motor sags. And in theory, this is our temporary mount. I'm going to let it cool down before I put it back in. All right, hopefully it still fits. All right, so the holes only have a 0.5 millimeter clearance, and I was still able to start all the bolts by hand, so I'm pretty happy with the shape. All right, let's let the strap down, and we'll put the angle gauge on there and see how close we got. Well, I know you can't see that display right there, but it's saying 0.6 degrees. 0.6 degrees down on that side, so I didn't quite go high enough, but when I'm making the production mount, all I got to do is just take the distance from here to here, 0.6 degrees, add that many shims, and we're good to go. So this is as close as I'm going to get it for this temporary mount. So let me get you guys some answers for a couple of the questions that came up over and over and over. We're going to start by the intake manifold. So there was some doubt about whether or not this would clear. Let's just go get the intake manifold, put it on. Here it is. I mean, there's enough room for me to run my hand in there. It's not even close. So yeah, the intake manifold definitely clears. And that's because we've got this thing mounted so far forward. If you had the E153 in here, like some other people have done the swap before, it pushes the motor a lot further back. With it this way, hey, at least we're helping our center of gravity a little bit. You know, we are adding a fair bit of weight to the car this way. The further forward we can make it, the better off we are. So, as far as the immediate problems that I see, I don't think we're going to be able to use this as an oil filler. I mean, well, maybe. No, I mean, I can't even get the cap in there. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to see if I can find kind of a blanking plate that screws into this that we can just kind of leave it in there permanently, and then find a different way to fill the oil on this motor. I've got a couple ideas. One of them is there's a timing chain tensioner cover so that you can service that thing, and we can probably put a small fill tube right there, kind of a transmission style fill tube, you know, with a locking cap. That would work well. Let's see, other than that, what I'm seeing, let me bring you around. The other big things that I'm seeing here is, this here is a sensor just like this. It's a cam position sensor, so we definitely can't go without it, but that sticks up and the wire comes up, so I think that's like the tallest thing we've got here. I'm going to look around. I bet I can find a sensor that's got a 90-degree angle on it, or, well, ideally like a 60-degree or 90-degree that way. I'm going to look, see if I can find something like that. And then this solenoid actually has the plug going up, and I think I can find a different solenoid because they're all the same thing, and I just got to find one that's got a tab on the side here that's got a connector going that way. I bet you if I kind of go searching in the parts bin through Toyota, I can find something that will fit better here. The other one, the other VVTi solenoid is not as much of a concern, but it is a slight concern, so I'm going to see if I can find something better for that also. This one, If we find a 90-degree solution, we might as well use it in both places because this wire will go straight up otherwise. And if that's the case, then we can get away with a cover here that's only maybe 5, max 10 millimeters extra clearance. We'll have to build up in this area just a little bit more. And the other consideration is the wiring harness has to pass and kind of go over here somewhere. Normally it's bolted to this. Obviously, I'm just going to try to reroute it. We'll see exactly what happens there without completely redoing the harness. So a quick Q&A. The first really surprising question I get a lot is, can I do this but with an automatic transmission? Or can I do this but with an E153? Or can I do this with a different engine because such and such country doesn't have that? And what they're actually asking there is, can I use these parts that I made to do that? And the answer is no. I mean, I sincerely believe, you look at this, and this is from about 8 years ago or so on my channel. You can see that I sincerely believe that you can put any engine in any car. That's a World War II radial airplane engine that I stuffed in the back of a second-gen MR2. But the point is, if you want to use the brackets that I make here, you have to use the E153, and you have to use the 2GR, or, of course, you can use the 2AR if you use the other bracket that I currently sell. And that's really it. I mean, these things are not that interchangeable. You can put anything in here you want, but you're going to have to do it yourself. And I realize this transmission right now, it's kind of rare. The problem is the problem is the world's on fire right now, and everybody's doing everything they can to find their own indoor projects. So these things have gone from a $1,200 price to $1,500 to $2,000. I've even seen people ask $2,500 for them, which is ridiculous because you can get a brand new one from Toyota for about $23. So don't pay $2,500 for one, even if you want one no matter what. Just go to Toyota, get one for cheaper. The other big question that I get is about that 340 horsepower. So Toyota rates this engine at 269 horsepower. Now, there's a little bit of free power. That's with regular gas. You gain about 10 horsepower just for going for premium. The ECU will automatically compensate for it. You can do it in your Sienna. Sienna. You can do it in your Sienna and you'll gain 10 horsepower. It doesn't really matter what the 2GR application is. With the 2GR, putting premium, you will gain horsepower. And I realize that sounds goofy because most engines do not gain a single horse when you do that, though modern engines will actually advance the timing, and more they actually do find that behavior going on. So that's number one. Number two is, I don't have an example right here, but the factory Y-pipe. The factory Y-pipe is completely abysmal. When I first started swapping these back in 2008, I was using completely a stock ECU tune and just fixing the exhaust. So at that point, we still had an intake that the stock ECU would be happy with. It was a tubular intake, but you had to keep the fuel trims in check. Just that, we were getting 275 wheel horsepower. And then if you look at the stock airbox, you look at, hold on. If you look at the stock airbox, you can see it has to make a sharp turn there. And you can replace this, but if you're stuck with the stock ECU, you have to use the fuel trims that this is expecting. And because the mass airflow sensor is so close, that means that you have to have the speed in the middle of the tube going faster than the outside, because that's what this does. So I make this part. It's a velocity stack with room for a mass airflow sensor. And because I make a tune for these ECUs, what that means is you can now use this. It gives you a much more even flow across the pipe, so using all of the intake pipe, and it gives you a bunch more power, a crisper response, and just all around this is a win-win-win-win-win. Now, this is great. Don't buy it for your Camry and put it in there and expect to make power, because this thing will have readings on the mass airflow sensor of about 25 to 30% low, because so much of the air is not concentrated in the middle. It's going all around in a uniform manner. So what's going to happen is you're going to run lean if you run this thing in your Camry without doing a tune. Now, I don't have enough time to be doing tunes for stock vehicles. If somebody is doing tunes for Camrys and RAV4s and Siennas and wants to use one of these to add power, contact me. We can work. I can help you out. And you can add some free power that way. And then the last little thing to do is on the lower intake manifold, there's the fuel injector bosses, and those, if you shave them off, you actually gain about another 5 horses. So in the second gen MR2s, that's what we've been doing, and that gets us to just about 300 wheel horsepower to the ground. And 300 wheel horsepower, you can add different percentages to get to what the actual horsepower of the engine is. I added a very low percentage so that I wouldn't get called out on, lying and whatnot. Went from 300 to 340 for horsepower, which is a pretty realistic number for what this engine's actually producing, which results in 300 to the ground. Now, the interesting thing is that's always been with the E153. The EB60 is actually a slightly more efficient transmission, so it has less transmission losses. That means, who knows? We might get an extra 5 horses to the ground. We might not. I'll keep you guys posted when I figure it out. So that's all I got. Please ask more questions in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them either in the comments or in the next video. The next video, what I plan on doing is I'll probably show off a production intent mount. Just probably a 3D printed one. It won't actually be made out of metal yet. And actually, I have no idea what we're going to tackle next. We're going to do, I don't know. I guess it'll be a surprise for all of us next video. So, have a good one, guys. We'll see you in the next one. And, yeah, there you go.